Good afternoon to everyone congregated in Europe. Good morning to all those in the United States. My name is Nils Goldschmidt and I'm the chairman of the board of the Alliance for the Social Market Economy. Based on all of the notes and calls and emails we received so far, including words of congratulation from ministries at both the federal level and the state level, it appears we have already been affirmed in our decision to grant this award to Professor Sachs. While you, Jeff, will be the most recent recipient of this prize, you certainly are not the first. We have a long tradition of awarding this prize. The Alexander Rüstow Award was awarded for the first time in 1964. 3 years later, it was awarded to Ludwig Erhard, the Federal Republic of Germany's second chancellor and the intellectual father of the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle in post-war Germany. The most recent recipient, Chancellor Angela Merkel, received the award 3 years ago. Jeff, I hope you feel as though you're in good company by accepting this award. And given who has won the award previously, let us know if you feel compelled to run for political office. As you can see, our awardees do quite well in national elections. To give you a little more insight about the Alliance, we have prepared a short film that we would like to share with you now. And action.
The establishment of the social market economy in Germany through Ludwig Erhard in 1948 served as the starting point for what has become known as the Wirtschaftswunder, or the economic miracle. Reforms, however, require societal acceptance, and this has been the mission of the Alliance for the Social Market Economy, to inspire people for our economic order. It is from the quaint university town of Tübingen where we are working on this project. No doubt, the world has changed since the time of Ludwig Erhard, but the goal has remained the same: to create an economy which serves people. We are in dialogue with you and others on this topic in a spirit marked by amiability and collegiality.
Winning people over for the social market economy and accepting the challenge of dealing with contemporary societal problems. This is the mission of the Alliance for the Social Market Economy. How do we deal with climate change? How will we live in a digital era? And how can we create our world as one global community? These and more issues are where we wish to contribute.
Research, economic education, and public advocacy are the three areas in which we are involved to shape our shared future. We are connected to researchers and scientists in several different disciplines and contribute to state-of-the-art research. Of particular interest is our approach to helping young people think about economic contexts and relationships. We want them to think creatively about solutions to contemporary public and economic policy problems. For example, with our simulation game of the economy, Macro. Broad acceptance requires an active public. Thus, our motto is to inform and to teach. It is not to make ideological converts. We do this in cooperation with many persona from public life. We want to recognize people who have been particularly instrumental in advancing the social market economy with the Alexander Rüstow Award. People with ideas, people who seek to understand, people who are moved to action, people who are prepared to stand up for their ideals, and people who are willing to assume responsibility. This year, we are pleased to honor Jeffrey Sachs as such a person, and to recognize his advocacy on behalf of an economy in service of people.
Now this would typically, if this were not an online ceremony, be the place where the audience would erupt in applause. Something like the Academy Awards when the Oscar winners are announced. Alas, we would have to do without. But did you notice the shopkeeper in the film? You might have thought that he had a striking resemblance with me, And you would be right. This was my father in his shop in the economic upspring of the 1950s. But that is really besides the point. It's now my privilege to welcome Ambassador Dr. Emily Haber, the highest representative of the Federal Republic of Germany to the United States. We appreciate that you are here to support the decision to award this prize to Professor Sachs, but also to emphasize the importance of the transatlantic relationship, the bond between Germany, Europe and the United States. Madam Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you again for including me in today's ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to participate in this ceremony celebrating the contributions of Professor Jeffrey Sachs. And in a moment, Professor Sachs will become the first US citizen to receive the Alexander Rüstow Award. It's no surprise that the Alliance for Social Market Economy has decided to award this prestigious prize to Professor Sachs. Firstly, he has produced some of the most significant research in economics. Last week, Professor Sachs achieved a milestone that less than 1 in a million economists will ever reach in an entire lifetime. His publications have now been cited more than 150,000 times. Not even the last 7 Nobel laureates in economics can claim that achievement, and it speaks to the importance of his work. Secondly, Professor Sachs is not only a brilliant and outstanding researcher, he's also one of the most influential economic advisors of our time. He has worked with dozens of heads of state and government all over the world. And I am sure that Professor Sachs is one of the very few, if not only, economists who has been an advisor to 3 United Nations Secretary General. Professor Sachs has called on the world's leading economies to devote a fraction of their wealth to ending poverty and saving the planet. The German government is committed to improving global social, environmental, economic, and political conditions in order to eliminate the root causes of poverty and promote global sustainable development. We have seen a great deal of progress over the last decades. The number of people suffering extreme poverty has declined, even though the world's population has sharply grown. We have made progress in fighting diseases such as polio, and this would not have been possible if countries such as the US or Germany had attempted the effort alone. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us once again that we need to act together. Global challenges demand global solutions. The EU and the US account for more than 40% of global GDP, about 1/3 of global trade, and almost 60% of global foreign direct investment. Our strategic interests and values are also strongly aligned. Together, we can achieve a great deal. The EU and the US, together with our partners, can lead the world towards a sustainable and competitive and inclusive economy. The EU and the US can, and I'm sure will, ensure funding for the equitable global distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. And our transatlantic cooperation can yield so much if we just acknowledge and act on Professor Sachs' argument that, and I quote, "The world is not a zero-sum struggle in which one country's gain is another's loss." I'm now looking forward to an interesting ceremony. Back to you, Professor Goldschmidt.
Market economy and of this event today. Having close transatlantic ties is important to many of the attendees of this event today, and you have been kind to join us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure and my privilege today to give a brief talk in honor of Jeffrey Sachs on the occasion of presenting him the Alexander Rüstow Award of the Alliance for the Social Market Economy. Esteemed guests, dear Professor Sachs, dear Jeff. To members of our Alliance, its friends and supporters, awarding you the Alexander Rüstow Award may appear as a novel selection. The ambassador already mentioned that. Isn't the social market economy, as it has grown historically, a genuinely German phenomenon? Historically, it certainly has been. And this also applies to the ORDs of the past years. The former President of Germany, Horst Köhler, Cardinal Reinhard Marx of the Catholic Church, a global player of its own, and most recently, Chancellor Angela Merkel. Yet of course, the social market economy is in no ways by necessity merely a German phenomenon. The fundamental behind it, aiming at a societal order which places the well-being of people at the center, can exist in many forms, and we can use different terms and difficult kinds of language to strive for the same goal, namely to advocate on behalf of an economic order that is, above all, humane. There's hardly a person to whom this applies better than to you, Jeff. Irrespective of which measure one employs, you are one of, if not the world's leading economists. This mentions the ambassador already too. In terms of the popular press, the New York Times, The Economist, and Time magazine have described you as such, but at a glance at the multiple citation indexes in the Academy reveals your influence on the field of economics, that is. But one reason this award is so fitting to commemorate your career is that while you are an economist, I do not see you exclusively as an economist. It was John Maynard Keynes who noted that, quotation, "The master economist must possess a rare combination of gifts, sorry. He must be mathematician, historian, statesman, and philosopher. He must study the present in the light of the past for the purpose of the future." Or, if one prefers a more liberal approach, it was Friedrich Hayek who came to a similar conclusion in stating, quotation, "Nobody can be a great economist who is only an economist. And I'm even tempted to add that the economist who is only an economist is likely to become a nuisance, if not a positive danger." Quotation ends. Your work, Jeff, certainly fulfills these criteria. You have shown in your work how economies, as well as economics as a field, intersects with broader societal questions. In this way, your research has always touched upon the pulse of the time. Transitions from socialists to market economies and strategies for economic reform, economic development and sustainability, climate change and environmental economics, and global health questions. These are just some of the areas in which you have conducted research and, more importantly, areas in which you have shown which paths are possible for economists interested in social questions. The sheer quantity of fields in which you have offered economic advice and taken on practical responsibility is staggering. One could only wish that more economists would try to follow your example, provided that they do so in the same responsible way as you have. Indeed, you have shown by example which innovative thinking looks like to all the rest of us who are interested in dealing with questions of well-being, of societal questions and cohesion, and of inclusive prosperity. Allow me to touch upon a few of these issues. Likely the first political issue for which you gained fame and notoriety was in advising governments in their reforms and transitions from state-planned economies to market economies. This certainly was the first encountered the name Jeffrey Sachs to me as a young student. Somewhat provocatively, perhaps, but this is what newspapers and magazines do after all, the German weekly Der Spiegel noted recently, quotation, "The man who was once the godfather of the birth of capitalism in Eastern Europe is now working to curb the influence of the free market in the United States." But of course, that is an overstatement. It's a good headline, but reality is far more complex. Even though it is a really cool title, other godfathers in New York spring to mind that undoubtedly confers credibility on the streets. I'm afraid, Jeff, that you were never the godfather of capitalism. At least not of a capitalism as many conceive of capitalism today. You realized back then the importance of inclusiveness, of societal cohesion, and that while markets are remarkably important, neither are they the only things that matter, nor do they function on their own. Your perspective thus aligns with Alexander Rüstow and other original proponents of the social market economy, namely the markets cannot themselves guarantee the prerequisites upon which they rely to function well. And that the state also plays an important role in addressing problems that private sector doesn't or is unable to address. And this brings us to your criticism of economic policy in the United States. The United States, you say, is suffering from its lack of a social market economy. A quasi-religious and misplaced trust in markets as a solution to all problems. A media landscape which is not fulfilling its primary task of educating citizens. A political system which is attracting more and more money into electoral campaigns. Problems with access to healthcare and affordable education, and social tensions along both class and racial lines. Into this reality, the social market economy offers a prospect of and a pathway to societal peace. It offers reconciliation between different groups and the chance for the compensation between different needs. But you have been astute, Jeff, in acknowledging that the limitation of markets do not make market obsolete. You write in the end of Poverty, quotation, "Many do not know that it is possible to combine faith in the power of trade and markets with understanding of their limitations as well. Many are too pessimistic about the possibilities of capitalism with a human face, that it is possible to acknowledge and address limitations through compensatory collective action." Quotation ends. This is indeed reminiscent of Alexander Rüstow, surprise, whose name carries the award you are receiving today. He wrote, quotation, "It is about economic and social policy which intentionally does not pursue records of higher marks for its own sake, that income growth or other factors keep going up and up and up because one cannot live or become content merely from upward sloping curves. Rather, it is about asking the question, what can be done in order to make the individual a happy person? For the well-being of people, one's social embeddedness is of not minor importance." Quotation ends. The challenge you point to is what makes the concept of a social market economy a vivid task. It is far from stationary. As conditions change, so too does our challenge to make our societal and economic order shift to take into account new developments, but what remains is that capitalism with a human face. As you call it, as there to serve people. It is not for people to serve capitalism. This clearly connects, in my mind, to what you are perhaps best known for among younger generations, your work on sustainable development. Arguably, you have been the foremost economist to seriously consider the challenge of development. Your work with the United Nations, several Secretary Generals, and the Millennium Development Goals has inspired many. You have been an educational entrepreneur in this respect, launching a new PhD program at your home university, Columbia, but also working to develop new fields of study and academic degrees in development practice. Perhaps nowhere clearer than here, your focus on sustainable development is one that assumes an approach which highlights how you view economic problems to be tied up with many other societal problems. In this sense, too, your thinking aligns with this idea of the social market economy. The interdependence of orders is frequently invoked by its advocates. We are not merely talking about economic problems when it comes to development. Economic problems are important, but they are always bound up with other questions which affect human flourishing. According to the person who coined the term social market economy, Alfred Müller-Amack, it is about the discovery of intellectual landscapes. While you have worked with dozens of countries spanning different continents to work towards poverty reduction, at the same time you have supported efforts such as Bhutan's to pursue strategies of gross national happiness. Indeed, your work on development has bridged divides across the globe. Perhaps it is for this reason that you have made health issues and environmental concerns such a prominent feature in your work on development. Perhaps it's also because you do not wish to succumb to what some might describe as economic reductionism. Or perhaps it was the prospect of working together with your wife, Sonia, a public health expert, which led you to embrace health questions. Also a good reason, should she have nudged you in this direction. Either way, in a sense, we in the West now have much greater awareness of how public health crises can bring everything to a grinding halt and impact our daily lives in such a significant way. The pandemic we are living through at the moment has revealed to us the severity that public health crisis can have. Yet you have been working on these questions of combating AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria, far deadlier diseases for decades. If our goal is for humans to thrive, we must acknowledge that this is difficult to achieve when disease is not contained in ways like we are often accustomed to in the West. It is also difficult to conceive of the promotion of individuals' well-being when their livelihoods are in jeopardy due to climate change or other environmental catastrophes. It is for this reason that your approach to sustainable development has placed such a significant emphasis on these issues. And in both of these cases, it is also abundantly apparent how our future is intertwined. The ability of developing and developed countries to cope and deal with some of their problems on their own is undoubtedly very different, but under globalized conditions, which issues we face are often the same. And this offers an opening to consider our shared responsibility in a more direct way, by means of convincing our fellow citizens how others' challenges are also our challenges. That this is related to a cosmopolitan ethic in which we care for the least among us is not difficult to determine, but it also connects very concretely to your advocacy, Jeff, of working through multinational organization and working multilaterally. Not only have you shown by example how to effect positive change through organization which, to the outsider, might appear at first glance as big bureaucracies. You have also written eloquently of the need to work together, to cooperate, to institute rules and norms which apply broadly. The great Swiss theologian Hans Küng, who lived in Tübingen, where the Alliance is based, and who is very close to our organization and supported its work, and who just sadly passed away this week, had the same goal of doing economics in a morally responsible way. In so doing, the concept of humane economies which seek to advance human flourishing is extended beyond narrow interest, understood only through the lens of the nation-state. This is the main lesson for me as I ponder the importance of a socially responsible market economy today. The context in which your research has been important for organizations like ours has consisted of advocating for the idea in an international context. I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks that the social market economy has largely been understood as a uniquely German and national phenomenon. Sure, there have been elements of internalization involved, the EU's Treaty of Lisbon being perhaps the most notorious example in having member states commit to a competitive social market economy. But these commitments, while important, are sometimes hollow, and they are still very different from getting to the nitty-gritty of challenges and problems that make up your research. In a way, this gets to the heart of why we want to honor you by presenting you the Alexander Rüstow Award. You embody the principles of the social market economy, of never losing sight of which goals and whom the economy must serve. But you have applied these in an international context. In other words, you have taken the social market economy global. It is what you call for when you write in the end of poverty that what we need is an enlightened globalization. Economic action or trade, as most economists understand it, is to be understood as a mutual gain. If this is the case, then we must harness our resources to make sure that gain is also realized in practice, especially among those who are more disadvantaged. We thank you for your years of tireless service, for advocating on behalf of these principles, and we hope we can count on you to continue such advocacy with energy, drive, and passion you have exhibited the past 4 years to come. Thank you. Okay, now to the official part of the evening, our presentation of the award. Allow me to read the text of the prize. In recognition of his efforts to advance a free and humane economic order dedicated to the well-being of all, we honor Professor Jeffrey D. Sachs by awarding him the Alexander Rüstow Award. Professor Sachs' commitment to open societies, market economies, and their respective responsibilities for development, poverty eradication, and for addressing climate change make him a worthy recipient of this prize. His understanding of market economies as instruments which are in need of constant reform places him in line with the traditional advocacy of the social market economy. Tübingen, April 8, 2021. Jeffrey, we have sent you the document with the prize and the medal in advance of today's meeting. Perhaps you could just briefly hold it up in the camera.
I thought we were going to say that it was the miracle of Zoom, but thank you for sending it in advance. It's beautiful and treasured. Let me hold up the medal as well. Oops, there we go.
Great.
Wonderful and remarkable. There is Alexander Rüstow in this beautiful medallion, and thank you for this wonderful, wonderful award and how beautifully presented.
It's our pleasure. Perfect, Jeff. Thank you. This is an image that could go around the world. Congratulations again. It's great to have you as an award recipient. And with that, I like to hand over the floor to you, Jeff, for your thoughts on what you have titled as Social Market Economy for the 21st Century. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nils. Thank you so much to the Aktion Gemeinschaft Sozialmarktwirtschaft, the Alliance for Social Market Economy. I'm profoundly, profoundly honored, and your words were so wonderful for me and exaggerated, and just it was such a pleasure to listen to you. I'm so grateful. And Ambassador Haber, thank you so much for your kindness of being with us and for your very, very wonderful words, and also for the leadership of the German government, which has done a remarkable job in promoting the goals of sustainable development, in championing climate safety, in championing global cooperation and multilateralism. And it's been my profound honor and benefit to work with BMZ and with GIZ for many, many years. And I want to recognize the vital support of the German government for the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, because Germany has made it possible to reach a network of universities around the world to help them to promote sustainable development in all parts of the world. It's also amazing and just profoundly touching for me to join this list of recipients whom you've mentioned. Of course, Chancellor Merkel, who has really held the world together with brilliance and clarity and decency for many, many years over a tough spot of US politics, I also want to add. And she's done it brilliantly. And to join any list with her is incredible. Cardinal Marx, His Eminence, you have mentioned, another hero of mine. And President Horst Köhler, of the award recipient in 2011. President Köhler is a remarkable, remarkable leader in finance, in politics, in decency. And he so phenomenally led the International Monetary Fund. And of course, as president of Germany, I have admired him so profoundly. And then to have an association in this way with, of course, Ludwig Erhard. I'm going to say a few words about that. One of the great founders of the social market economy. Indeed, I would like to speak about the current context, the social market economy in the 21st century, because I believe that the social market ethos, the guidance, the wisdom, the practical knowledge has a profound beneficial role to play for the whole world. And I want to explain in a few minutes why that is. Let's start with the basics. The social market economy is the union of two core ideas: personal liberty, as reflected in the ability to transact as free individuals in competitive markets, and social responsibility, mainly implemented through our civic duties and through state action. And these two ideas joined together as social market are a fundamental reflection of our fundamental dual reality as human beings, that we are both individuals and we are citizens in a society. We play these dual roles, and we must recognize that duality in our own lives and our own responsibility, our own ethics, our own habits, our own attempt to cultivate our personal virtues, and also our responsibilities as citizens. We are constantly challenged, therefore, to reconcile two ideas: our individual freedom and our duties to social justice. And social justice meaning the promotion of dignity for all human beings and the economic rights as well as political and civil rights for all people everywhere. And this duality gives rise to two correlative dualities. First, that private markets go together with pro-social responsibilities of property. Private property doesn't mean do what you want. Private property must be embedded within a moral framework. And the second duality is the market and the state. The market can only function in the context of an effective state, and an effective state without the marketplace becomes a tyranny. And so the idea of joining the market and the state together, the gemischt Wirtschaft, as Adenauer put it in 1946, is the right gemischt. It's the right mix for the mixed economy. And of course, as you mentioned, and I also want to subscribe to it, as Wilhelm Röpke put it famously, it means the humane economy, an economy for human beings, an economy for human well-being, an economy for human decency. Well, the roots of this idea of the social market are very, very deep. I think they are fundamental in human ethics and certainly fundamental in Western civilization. When I go back to the ancient Greeks, and I am an Aristotelian at heart, Aristotle emphasized that society is for eudaimonia. It is for human well-being. It is for thriving. And in order to achieve that, politics must be seen as ethics. And that's why his ethics and his politics, those two volumes, one starting the field of political science, the other starting the field of ethics, are really paired together and meant to be understood together. He also believed in a mixed constitution of governance by the best and governance by all of humanity in a complex constitution, a gemischt economy and political system. And he also emphasized the importance of moderation in all things, the great Greek wisdom of Medenzagan, that we cultivate moderation. We don't let greed or the excesses of power run away with us. Well, these roots are also found in Athens, but they're also found, of course, in the Jewish and Christian faiths, and fundamentally, therefore, as part of Western civilization. And I want to quote from Deuteronomy 15. If there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, in any of your towns in your land, which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart, nor close your hand from your poor brother, but you shall freely open your hand to him, and shall generously lend him sufficient for his need in whatever he lacks. This is fundamental of our faith teachings. And of course, in Matthew 25, as Jesus taught in the Gospels, come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. This is the most fundamental of our ethical responsibilities as members of society. Whenever the balance between liberty and pro-social responsibility is broken, we have mass suffering. Laissez-faire libertarianism leads to inequality, to exploitation, and to misery for many, because the market is not a natural order. There is no invisible hand. This is what ordoliberalism teaches. We must fashion the market fit for human beings. The invisible hand is a fascinating idea of course, expounded by a very brilliant social thinker, Adam Smith. But it dangerously leads to complacency, that all will come out right in the end by a natural order. And this is not true. We need an ordered state, and we need our ethical responsibilities, and markets alone cannot lead to the outcomes that we seek. And the followers, unfortunately, it's a very fascinating question, which I'm studying intensively now, how we got to the libertarian idea, because this is not our fundamental ethical idea for centuries and centuries. But I'm afraid that the British variant of Calvinism gave us a little bit of a detour, and with some complacency, and then with the excesses of power, British success, came the complacency and the ability to turn away from great suffering. And that happened on many historic occasions. And it's one of the consequences when there is the imbalance or the break between liberty and pro-sociality combined. Of course, pro-sociality without liberty can lead to collectivism, to tyranny, or as Friedrich Hayek put it, to the road to serfdom. And that's why the balance is absolutely essential. It is, as you emphasized, Nils, the case that the social market developed in Germany's historical context. And this is very important. Chancellor Otto von Bismarck essentially invented modern social protection as a sense of the society not becoming a revolutionary upheaval. Edward Bernstein taught, in contrast to Karl Marx, that a revolution would not be needed or helpful, that there could be an evolutionary and a democratic path to human well-being. The hyperinflation of 1923 taught two things. One, what Erhard and others would teach, the need for fiscal responsibility, but also, as Keynes taught, the essential need for international cooperation, because post-World War I Germany was driven to hyperinflation by the adverse, in fact, disastrous terms of the Treaty of Versailles. And this became its own new tragedy, as Keynes predicted it would. And then, of course, the rise of Hitler in 1933 showed the vulnerability of any society, Germany being the most intellectually, culturally sophisticated society imaginable, and yet prey to beastly inhumanity and horrific violence and murder. And it was in that context that the thinking about a new kind of economy and its urgency was taking hold. When Rüstow and Rübke and Hayek went to the Walter Lippmann colloquium in 1938, it was in the shadow of Nazism and with the utter urgency of preserving a liberal freedom, a human freedom in the face of tyranny everywhere. And this was key to the historical foundations. Erhard's monetary reform in 1948 that started the Wirtschaftswunder was an astounding technical breakthrough and daring. And I want to add, in my own personal experience, twice I have found myself feeling directly associated with Erhard's miracle, because when I advised in my starting effort as an economic advisor of Bolivia in the midst of its hyperinflation, the first words of the person I was advising, who later became president of Bolivia, Gonzalo Sanchez de Losada, said that we should follow Erhard's reforms, that this is what was needed. And interestingly, when those reforms proved to be very successful in Bolivia to end the hyperinflation decisively and restore economic growth, I was invited to Poland at the beginning of Poland's democratization in 1989 and helped to draft the first market reforms. And I met the first democratic prime minister of Poland in the post-communist era. In the summer of 1989, Prime Minister Tadeusz Mazowiecki. And his first words to me, literally, were, I'm searching for my Ludwig Erhard. He knew that he needed an economic reformer of Ludwig Erhard's brilliance in order to pull Poland through. And he found Leszek Balcerowicz, who indeed led the market reforms that enabled Poland to break out of the bankruptcy of the communist era and to begin resumed economic growth on a market model. And my feeling at the time and my advice was guided by the overriding idea that Poland should rejoin Europe. And rejoining Europe meant rejoining the European social market. I came to Germany in those days and met with senior German officials to describe the Polish reforms. And Germany was, of course, a major supporter of Poland's efforts and its ability to break out of what was a growing economic and social disaster. So these are the backgrounds to the social market economy. I think that it's interesting for us to reflect that many of the debates of the founders of the social market economy, because they varied quite a bit. Some were more market, some were more social, but they all came under the same rubric. I understand that Erhard did not like the phrase gemischte Wirtschaft very much, at least how it's reported, and he was more on the market side. But this balance, I think, is what proved the wonderful power of this model. And while there were, of course, debates then, very heated political debates between the CDU, the CSU, and the SPD in the late 40s, and sharp differentiation between social market and social democracy. In practice now, when we look forward 70 years, we find a pretty much of a convergence of the two concepts. In Germany today, tax revenues are 47% of GDP, a real mixed society, mixed economy. Sweden, 49%. So the social democracy and the social market approach, very, very similar. Denmark, a little bit higher at 52% of GDP, the social democratic tradition. The United States tax revenues are only 30% of GDP. This is the legacy of the more British libertarian position. But I can tell you 17% of GDP gap of revenues between the US and Germany is a big gap of social decency. It is having an underclass. It is having people that do not have health care, that do not have enough to eat in a rich society. So I'm thrilled that President Biden is talking about new tax collections to support new social spending and infrastructure, moving towards a social market philosophy, which we so much need. I think it's also important to say Hayek was wrong about one important thing. He said that social welfare, he didn't say it in 1945, he said it in a later edition of The Road to Serfdom, that the social welfare state itself would eat away at democracy. Fortunately, this is not the case. The strongest democracies in the world are the Northern European countries. And the University of Würzburg's Quality of Democracy ranking recently puts Denmark #1, Sweden #4, Germany #5 in the whole world, and the United States way back at 36th position. And I think that it's related to the lack of the social in the market system in the United States. Let me conclude by talking about the social market economy today for the world, because the social market economy endures and gives crucial guidance for the world today. I would mention 6 core points. The importance of market freedom, which China learned with Deng Xiaoping's reforms, which propelled China to an amazing 40 years of economic development, which I heartily support and admire. Second, social responsibility in a humane economy. Third, combining rights with responsibilities, a very Kantian idea. So I think Germany also has a huge contribution in Kant's notion of the duties that go along with the rights. The crucial role of the rule of law and the role of the state in ordering the market, ordoliberalism, rather than anarchy or anything goes. And sixth, the active and ever evolving role of the state as conditions and technology and needs change. The market is not a natural order, it is a powerful instrument for well-being within a broader ethical framework. So what are new concepts needed for our time? I would mention 5 quickly. First, global responsibility. We must think of the economy at a global, interconnected scale. It is hopeless to think about any economy in autarky, in isolation. No economy can function without the interconnections of the world, and no ethical order can function without a global ethical order. That means international tax, international rule of law, development finance, care for the global commons. Second is ecological responsibility. We face multiple environmental crises, the zoonotic diseases, of which COVID is a devastating case, climate change, the loss of biodiversity, mega pollution. Third is the need for technological responsibility. Cyber technology can be a magnificent contributor to human well-being, or another disaster of surveillance, of cyber warfare, of fake news. And so we need responsibility of the new cyber digital technologies. We need responsibility of the new biotechnologies, which have brought us vaccines in record time, but they must be deployed fairly, humanely, safely. We need, of course, technological responsibility for the ongoing nuclear threat, which continues to hang over the world's very survival. A fourth concept for the 21st century that emerges from the social market is the duty of peace. And again, I would point to Immanuel Kant's 1795 essay on perpetual peace as starting the world thinking, maybe second to Isaiah. Isaiah taught us first about the idea of perpetual peace. Immanuel Kant brought it to the realities of modern interdependent societies. We cannot have Cold Wars. We cannot have conflict. We need cooperation. And then finally, and the fifth point is underpinning all of this, we need Weltethos. We need a world ethics. Professor Hans Kung was a brilliant, inspiring, learned scholar, leader who helped all of the world to understand that we really have a world ethics if we look for it. And in a lifetime of search, he demonstrated the core underpinnings that we share in all societies of the world. And the Institute of Weltethos in Tübingen continues this great, great effort, and it's so important for our time. And so let's remember in this recent passing of Professor Kung, the profound contribution that he made and the relevance of his teaching for us now. So I want to say that the social market economy is a powerful way for us to move forward together in the world. And in closing, I want to remind us that we will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 2023. This is the world's supreme moral charter. It recognizes economic rights together with civil and political rights. It is subscribed to by all countries in the world: Europe, China, the United States, Africa, Latin America, all parts of the world. And so it behooves us at the 75th anniversary to build upon the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I would like to see us add some human responsibilities to the human rights in 2023 so that we reaffirm this moral charter. We take the lessons of the social market economy. We recognize the urgencies of our time in environmental inequalities, environmental threats, inequalities, technological challenges, and we commit ourselves to peace and sustainable development based on a humane economy and a humane society. Thank you so much for the profound honor that you've given me today, and I look forward so much to working together with you on these challenges in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your talk, Jeff. Or should I better say Ludwig? So, without kidding. So it was a fantastic talk. So it was illuminating. So it was, yeah, a great honor to have you giving us this lecture about the challenges for the 21st century. And you have raised a lot of points, and I'm really looking forward to discuss these points on further occasions with you. So the embeddedness of private markets, the necessity of a functioning state, the question of how moral values are necessary for a functioning economy, and a lot of things more. Thank you so much again for this fantastic talk. And we appreciate your taking the time and addressing this important issue at a time where societal frictions are present in so many countries around the world. To conclude today's ceremony, we wish you all the best, Jeff, and we hope that we will be able to host you again sometime in the not distant future in Tübingen to continue these conversations once the pandemic allows us for more face-to-face interactions. I do want to thank many people who made this event possible. Without the Heinz Nixdorf Foundation and their support, this event wouldn't be possible. Thank you, and thank you to the foundation. There are others too whom we wish to thank. Jeff's wife Sonja, who helped us in the run-up to this event, Savannah Pearson and Ute Friedrich, who have done a tremendous job in coordinating all that goes into this kind of event. Now is typically the time when we would open the buffet and enjoy the evening together. It would be accompanied by Swabian wine. But as become commonplace over the last year, we are going to have to pass on that today. But as I mentioned a few moments ago, I'm confident that we will be able to make good on this in the not too distant future. Depending on where you are, I now get to wish you a pleasant evening or afternoon. Thanks for attending today. Until next time, goodbye.